So, how have you been anyway?
Not too bad. Yeah, not too bad. My mum's away at the moment in Portugal.
How is how long is that for?
She comes back on Wednesday.
Do you struggle being home alone in that sense? I mean, I guess technically.
Yeah, I mean, technically I live alone already.
Yeah,
I mean, not really, but kind of.
Knowing in a communal sense she's not right next door.
Sorry. That was Jesus.
That's all right.
What was the question? Do I struggle being alone? Not really, no.
I'm not in that broad. Yeah, we all do. No, as in, like, do you struggle with the fact that when your mum goes away and you don't have knowing that she's there? Like,
no. In fact, it's probably easier for me.
Yeah.
I don't mind being alone, really. I'm pretty happy alone.
That's good.
So, yeah. But looking after the dog has been a bit stressful, just because. What are you looking at now?
I'm just looking out the window. It's just just being reflective whilst you're talking.
Leo's a bit stressful. You've seen him, haven't you? Really, he's just a bit hard to. Yeah. He follows me around, and I can't go up to the toilet without him following me, and it's just a little bit like I don't usually have someone following me everywhere I go, so it's a little bit different to what I'm used to.
Does it feel like you're caring for a child, or is it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders, especially because he's so old as well. It's like he could die now. He could die. He could be dead right now.
Next door.
Yeah. I mean, he's 11.
Yeah, he's old for a dog.
Yeah.
What breed is it?
Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Yeah.
Well, I think their average lifespan is 12.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And the one before that died at 8. So, I mean, like, if Leo was to all of a sudden, like, stop breathing,
then
I genuinely wouldn't know what to do. And last night, like, he's been sleeping on my bed recently, and I've had to, like, check that he's still breathing because I'm so worried about him just dying. Like, I'll be like, is he breathing? Yeah, cool. And then I'll just go to sleep.
I literally had the same thing though with Ruby. Like, I mean, she's dead now.
Was that your girlfriend?
Yeah. And no, so yeah, Ruby the cat, obviously she was 14, 15, I think, and she was supposed to die quite young because she was like a runt. She'd be like, well, yeah, she's gonna have a lower life expectancy, but she was kicking and screaming all the way up until 14, 15. And like there were times when my parents went away, or like more so when my sister was at uni and my parents went away, and I was kind of conscious that it's just me. If I come home to a dead cat from work or something, to say, what am I going to do? How would I react to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the procedures for vets. I don't even know. Do vets take just like A&E style?
Yeah. Well, I had to find this out with because Bingley, and the same with. I mean, we've had a very hectic cat couple years actually. So Bingley, like,
I remember
got
that.
suspected poisoning or something happened. He came home and he was in like anaphylactic shock or something. So there is an emergency vet, but it's not your normal vet. Your normal vet closes at like, I saw our one just down the road closes at like 7, I think. And then there's literally like a half-hour gap of like, if anything happens to your animal in a half hour, you're fucked. And then at 7:30, the emergency vet, which is like a couple towns over, opens up, and you can dash over there. And there's no appointments. You just turn up and you give them what you have.
Right.
And yeah, I kind of wondered if that was like something I'd have to bear in mind. But so with Bingley, he, literally, like I said, he came in and it was like 7:05. So it was in that little gap of like the other place isn't open yet, but the vet local is like just shutting. We rang them and they were like, just bring him in. We'll see what we could do. Like they were just closing up. And we bring him in and they're like, oh yeah, they just gave him some like adrenaline or something. Just got him like hyped up. And then no, the opposite. They gave him something to relax him. And like that whole evening, he was just like really like just didn't look right. He was just like sleeping weird and was just uncomfortable looking and wouldn't eat anything. He tried, like he was trying to eat, like he just put his mouth in the food. He'd just be like, you know, and then just not actually no jaw movement. But yeah, then he like slept on that, and then the next day it was bright as rain, as if nothing had ever happened, and cost us like what £200 for that little run in and out or something. Yeah, it was quite expensive. But when we woke up to Ozzy, and he was effectively dying downstairs, and he was old. He was like 17, and he had cancer as well, so we knew it was coming. And he was literally like not far off it, but you just take him to the vet, and then the vet are like, okay, give him a little bit of anesthesia or whatever it is, the euthanization, and then he's gone. And you know, they said something like they only half dosed him, and he still was like ready to go. Like he wasn't, you know, he was ready. And so when Ruby was supposed to be next, I was just like, if even just the fact that I was like the only one working at home, I was like, fuck's sake, if this animal kills over on me, especially because I just always imagined her dying in the most gruesome way possible. You remember what she looked like? I mean, she just looked horrendous. Like she was,
I don't remember.
She was like, you know, just, she looked like a stray. Like all her hair was matted and had bits in it, and like she had like a rash constantly. Her eyes are all boogered up. So I was like, what's going to happen? She's going to probably have some sort of like fit, you know, or a stroke or something, like, so she's going to like choke her own vomit. Like, so I just knew, it just felt like something vile was going to happen. And that's how she was. So I always just like, as soon as when I was home alone, I was just, please don't cause me any problems. I just can't deal with that trauma.
Go on.
No, yeah, I was just going to say, but like eventually it was kind of a case of like she just wasn't looking after herself, so we just got to put down. But yeah, it was a bit rough.
Does it get easier? I don't know how many cats you've had, but after you've lost like 4 cats, does it get easier to get over them dying?
I mean, each cat's a little bit different, I think. But yeah, without sounding like a mad cat family, we've had a few.
Yeah.
You know, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, probably 7 in my lifetime.
What, they've now died? Or
yeah, Bingley would be the 8th, I think. And he's the only cat we've got at the moment, which is the first time I've only had 1 cat since I've been born.
Right.
In the house. So yeah, I mean, it's different. So like with Chloe, you know, she died when I was like 8, so I didn't know. And she just disappeared one day, so you never really got the confirmation that she died. You just knew she went somewhere, you know, died in the bush, blah blah blah.
And hang on, so you didn't even?
We never went. Yeah, MIA.
So it might not have just died.
I mean, it obviously has died by now.
yeah. No, I just mean, it was like missing in action.
Yeah. She was 18 when she left though. So
I see. So it's like Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
Both dead and alive at the same time.
Exactly. And it was like, I think we went out looking for her a few times, but then we're like, yeah, she's definitely donezo. And I don't think that was this and Herbie. So then we had Herbie, and Herbie I had for a long section of my like childhood. And then, yeah, I think I got pretty sad when he died. But because we already had another 2 at home, that's when we had Millie and Ruby. Because we got 2 to replace Chloe effectively. So then we had 3 cats. Herbie then died, and then Millie and Ruby lived on, and then to replace Herbie, we got Ozzy. And Ozzy was definitely like, me and Ozzy were like the closest. Like, when it comes to having a connection with an animal, like me and Ozzy, you know, I spent so much time with him. Like he had we had the same nocturnal clock. So when I was staying up late and stuff like that, like he'd always be in my room. He'd always come sit on my lap. He'd always, like, there's always been a weird thing with like cats when you leave the house and you're in public and you're not at home, cats just pretend they don't know you. Like if I walk down the path towards the park and I see one of my cats and I'm like, hello, Bingley, Bingley, you know, and then he would look at me and be like, who the fuck are you? Don't go near me, and then just leave. You know, they don't recognize you, which is odd. But Ozzy never did that. You know, if I was going down the side alley, or like a good example is we go on school trips and get up at early, really like 6 a.m. and walk down to school, and he'd go the whole way, all the way to Knights Templar. He'd follow us and come down with us. I always found that like really cute. And it was like 6 a.m, which I found kind of cute. But yeah, and I think he was just like no bullshit. Like he wasn't. He never did anything wrong. You know, I've never seen a cat embarrassed until we accidentally locked him in the porch overnight once, and he did a poo in the porch. We opened the door, and he like looked so embarrassed. I was like, this cat is never gonna poo inside. When the time we had Ruby, who she didn't give a fuck about her bowel movements, she was just shitting everywhere because she just didn't care. So having Ozzy as this weirdly prideful cat of like, oh, I wouldn't dare take a shit in the house. And I'm so embarrassed I took a shit in the porch. My deepest apologies, you know. And like he just looked like he hated all the other cats. I don't know. He had a personality that I just loved. So when he died, it was a bit like, oh fuck. Like weirdly enough, because he always used to scratch on my window. I had to let him in at night because we shut the other cats out. But he was like, I don't hang out with the other cats. So he climbs up on the roof and bashes at my window.
That's pretty cool.
And then I have to let him in, and then he just comes and sleeps in my room. And there's still like the dirt from his paws like on my window where I haven't. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm just lazy. I haven't cleaned it off yet. But like, there's a weird bit of sentimentality there where I'm like, oh,
yeah. It's like my I have a key ring on my key, which is just like bitten from Benji, my old dog, and it's just rubbish, really, isn't it? But
Benji related to Leo.
I think they were related, but like distant.
Oh,
from the same like dog seller. They were like distant uncles or cousins or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just assume they were brothers for some reason.
No. I don't think that would work out age-wise.
What was the age difference?
I can't remember, but it was pretty big. I mean, Benji was on the way out when we got Leo as a little pup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like uncles would probably make sense in terms of dog families.
So is Benji the one that's on the picture in your living room with Leo?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they kind of had an overlapping time alive together.
Yeah. Okay.
And Leo would always steal Benji's food.
Nice.
Like they'd be fed at the same time, and Leo would be finished like in 10 seconds, and then would run over to Benji, push him out the way, and just be eating all his food.
Nightmare.
Yeah. But they were good dogs. They are. I mean, Leo is still
Leo's
is a good
still
dog.
about.
Yeah.
I mean, he's deaf. Is he also blind? Is he a bit blind, or is he?
I did have a theory that he's blind, but like he's been deaf now for 4 years, and I went to the dog hairdressers. What do you call them? A groomer.
Yeah.
I went to a groomer, and I found
Dog
it really
groomer to be specific.
Yeah.
Don't wanna.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good point. And I've completely lost my train of thought now.
Sorry, you were in the dog groomer.
Oh yeah, and this lady was talking to her dog, and the dog could hear and like could clearly hear, and I was like, "What?" Because Leo's been deaf for like 4 years now. I completely forgot that dogs could hear. Yeah. So she was like talking to the dog, and the dog was reacting, and I was like, "How is that? How is that going on? How is that happening?"
Well, he's strangely aware. Where if you didn't specifically say, I probably would have been like, "Oh yeah, he's maybe partially deaf."
But I mean, that's what happens when you're deaf, isn't it? You kind of got to make up for it by being perceptive. I mean, these days now, because he can't hear, like he can't hear me get up or anything, he will position himself in a way that he will be awoke by. Awoken.
He'd be disturbed if
I got up from my chair or something. Like he'd sit right there just to make sure. Whereas before he would be able to lie anywhere and hear me get up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got that. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I've none of my cats have been deaf or blind or no pets I've had. We had an inkling Ruby was deaf at one point, but she used to sleep at the back of our garden on a bench, and she'd sleep in a way that made her look dead. And like even way up until like a week before we got her put down, like we'd see her out there, and you just had to knock slightly on the window, and she'd be like straight like up, awake. She'd run over and be like, let me in, and we'd be like, no, because you're just gonna shit and puke everywhere, and that's disgusting. So.
Yeah, I don't really see the positives of having a cat. It just seems like it's horrible. I mean, the frogs the bringing in the dead frogs and the dead rats and things, like what's the positives of having a cat?
Well, the affection, obviously, I think.
But there is no. You just told me that when cats see you in public, your cats see you in public, they don't even recognize you.
Yeah. That's different. That's kind of just like like a toxic relationship, I guess. It's like when you're home, they're really intimate,
Are they?
They're all different. And like Ozzy, like I said, he used to come in and sit on my lap whilst I was gaming in the evening. And he's very vocal as well, which is quite cute. Like he'd always be in the kitchen meowing and stuff. And with like Bingley now, he's very much like super affectionate because we raised him in lockdown. So he's just used to having everyone around. And like he'll get in and he'll just cry and be like, where is everyone? Then once he finds you, he's there and he leans on you. Like I've never had a cat lean. Like cats normally either sit on your lap or they'd sit next to you. But he comes up and he gets right up against you and just flops onto you and just leans on you like that. Yeah. And then he's not even sleeping half the time. He's just hanging out.
You need to get a dog, man. It's a cat leaning on you, it's... Who cares? I mean, a dog will unconditionally love you forever.
But dogs require more effort than a cat.
Do they?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, you got to walk a dog.
You got to walk a cat.
You don't. The cat, you just let it out and it'll go and do its own thing.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I like personally, I like the independence of cats. Like apart, yeah, that's all right. Like apart from,
sorry.
No, it's all right.
Oh no, have I broken those?
No, you just flipped the cup.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, like apart from fucking the fact that dogs need walking and dogs need, like, I feel like they need a little bit more because, they have like a loyalty thing. Cats are completely independent. And I don't know if it's just because I have commitment issues, but like I can't be bothered for a dog that is like waiting on everything from me, which is what I don't like about Bingley, because Bingley is needy like a dog is. Like he fully is like, he needs attention almost 24/7. When Ozzy was great because he just would be like, nah, I'm off. I'm gonna.
I don't think all dogs need attention all the time though. I think it's just depends on the dog like it depends on the cat. But I think if you look at the average cat and the average dog is more affectionate, cares more about you. It's more loyal. I mean, cats are basically rodents.
Yeah, it's a different hormonal thing, isn't it? Like dogs have different, I don't even know. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend to go into the biology, but like they have a different type of bond, like with wolves and tribes.
Yeah.
That it kind of evolves. It's something to do with that relationship wolves had in a wolf pack. Is why dogs domesticated the way they did, where they can be super loyal, and you teach them. They're like, because like dogs just seem dumb from the surface, but especially like most breeds just look dumb and act dumb, but like they're obviously very intuitive and can very much like be tamed or disciplined in a way that makes them quite malleable behavior wise. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but like, you can't have you would never be able to get a police cat, for example.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Like cats have complete independence. You can't really teach them to do anything. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Which in a lot of cases I'd like, because it means I don't have to kind of call them for the food. I can just put the food in the food bowl, and then when they feel like it, they're going to go over and have some. And then when it gets empty, I top it back up again. And that's,
Yeah, I suppose so.
And then they'll go out at their own accord, take a shit at their own accord. Like I don't have to walk them, watch them take a shit, pick it up and stick it in the bin. I can just be like, right, go shit in the neighbor's sandpit, don't worry. Like, it's like they know,
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, let's move on from
animals.
Yeah, because
pets and shit.
Yeah. Are you an alpha?
Like an alpha wolf? Oh yeah.
Yeah, like an alpha male. Would you say you're an alpha?
Oh my God, this would open such a difficult conversation up. Like if you asked me this like 5 years ago.
Why?
Well, it's just like, when that whole thing of the concept of an alpha male, beta male became like the new.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was 5 years ago though. I'd say maybe 3.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like the whole.
Remember 3 years ago is 2019.
Okay, maybe. Yeah,
I'm
maybe,
not.
actually, no,
And
yeah,
if you're
5 years,
if you're talking
20.
about the resurgence of like Jordan Peterson and Sigma male and all that shit, I'm talking about before that, when it was like the alpha and the beta, and like, when everyone was just cool, it's like, oh, that's beta. Like if someone does something that's like considered.
Maybe I wasn't a part of that. I feel like I came into the whole alpha beta discussion around the time that Sigmas were starting to.
No, I mean it's God, it's like a weird. I think if you're already, from where I stand now, I think if you're already trying to figure out if you're the alpha or the beta, you're already
a beta.
Yeah, well, not exactly a beta, but you're already not.
If you're subscribing to the idea.
Yeah, if you subscribe to the idea in the first place, you're already the problem. The problem side of it.
There's not a single person that can say that they are an alpha and be an alpha, because saying that you are an alpha is a beta thing to do.
Yeah, you're denouncing it.
Yeah.
You've rejected it.
Do you think they exist?
I mean, in a behavioral sense, I guess it kind of, and this is completely like a naive, I've never studied psychology, but I think in a behavioral sense, there is a line between, and this aligns a lot actually, with something I've been learning in therapy recently, is the concept of like the first 5 years of your life has, basically dictates your personality. So whatever small behavioral things. So
I slightly unrelated to that, but I heard someone told me that your personality changes or like refreshes every 7 years. So I don't know whether those are two.
That's skin, isn't it?
No. I think it was someone in school told me it. So it's about as unsourced as.
I mean, I guess personalities develop over time for sure. I think it's not, especially if you're living a healthy lifestyle, your personality would naturally sway.
Yeah, I think the point is what the person told me at school was, if like when you're 7 and when you're 14 and when you're like 21, 28, if they all met up in a room, you'd be completely different
people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, I'd believe that.
But that. But carry on with the 5 years thing anyway, because that was kind of an interruption.
No, that's fine. Well, I mean, I guess that's just kind of it. Like, especially if we want to bring it back to alpha and beta stuff, it's like if you were raised in a way that you did something kind of, I don't know. Oh God, I had a good analogy for this. Okay, the analogy, the psychologist, I watched a lecture on it actually as well. And the psychologist used this analogy of, so basically if you, for example, if you have a brother and a sister, or a brother and a brother, and the older brother or older sister, who's still like between the ages of 0 and 5, now has a younger sibling, and their role now, even in a capacity as they're being asked, and they enjoy the act of doing stuff for the parents to help provide for the younger sibling, bringing them a bottle, bringing them a nappy, or keeping an eye on them, like pseudo like babysitting, not literally, because a 5-year-old can't babysit a baby, but in that sense of like they're given that sense of responsibility at that age. So when they're raised older, this is when they become a kind of a more motherly or fatherly figure, even as a young person, and then that kind of behavior then can be interpreted as them being slightly more alpha, because they're more caring of people in a sense. But yeah, I don't know if that's like a stretch or if there's a better way to describe that. But yeah, I think there's definitely this primal and almost instinctual sense of when people used to be like, I don't want to say cavemen as such, but when some people, it's like it's the whole the wolf and the sheep thing. Some people are
dwarf and a sheep.
Wolf and sheep, not dwarf and sheep.
Oh, I see.
No,
it sound like dwarf. But
yeah. No, so in the sense that so you have especially when you're in like a school. Like I feel like it's the most prominent of a concept when you're in a community like that. So I think the reason that, especially like in school, people used to talk about it, at least when it got popular, all the time. Whereas like
talk about what?
The concept of alpha and beta, like
right.
And it's always males. It's never, you never noticed it's never talking about females. I don't feel like it ever talks about females.
Did you see that thing that Boris Johnson said about if Putin was a woman, he wouldn't have declared war on the Ukraine?
God, I didn't see he said that. Did he actually say that? Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think if you look back at history, you can't really think of, unfortunately, you can't think of very many female world leaders,
Especially not tyrannic female world leaders.
No. But I don't think you would find particularly many tyrannical female leaders. Full stop.
So this is interesting to me, and this is definitely turning into like two white boys sitting in a room talking about huge world issues. But especially like I get it with I don't know, not Boris Johnson, Vladimir, is that he.
You're on first name terms.
Yeah. Me and Vlad go way back. It's the fact that he's very much a product of his time and a product of like his like the way, and this is obviously can come off completely naive of me and uneducated of me, but like I think there's a way the way like with the whole 5 years thing, almost the way Russian children of like his era, like how old's Putin now? 70?
Yeah, I think so.
Something around there.
Are you saying that Putin turned out the way he did because he had a little brother?
Did he?
He might have done. Yeah.
Well, no, but I do think with all world leaders, a huge reason the way they are is because of the first 5 years of their life with everyone. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And,
it's the formative years, isn't it?
And like especially like with his experience in the KGB and the way he's been trained and probably at some point even brainwashed, because the insane amount of manipulation the like Russian military personnel can go through. So for him to think the way he does, obviously from my understanding at the moment, he's in a place where he is terrified that the UN are trying to, and NATO are trying to reject the Soviet Empire, which hilariously enough, obviously we are in from a perspective that's the Soviet era is long and gone.
Is he terrified of that, or is he just using that as the reason to
what?
Be expansionist?
What do you think? He's just a natural expansionist that he just wants.
Well,
I'm under the impression he just wants to reform the Soviet Union, and NATO is specifically disabling that, and that's what's causing him to react the way he is, very erratically. I think it's like I said, this is definitely, it feels weird talking about this because I don't feel like I have any place to talk about this, but just from my perspective, it really feels like that. And I don't even know if it's a controversial thing to say, but like, I don't think Putin is 100% the villain in this. He definitely is a huge, like, don't get me wrong, especially specifically on the conflict in Ukraine, like, war crimes effectively at this point. But I am curious what the full story is from both sides from the beginning of the Cold War to now for this relationship to cause this sort of reaction. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the problem is we're not exactly unbiased, are we? I mean, we're a product of Western US imperialism itself. So any opinions we have, any information that we look up online is is going to be biased.
Doctors, it's completely naive to kind of. We're all here to quickly denounce what the Russian government are saying. It's like, oh, it's bullshit because it's conforming to their own. And I'm like, do you not think our governments do the exact same thing?
Does Nightcall as a corporation denounce Russia?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah?
No, not Russia, Putin specifically though.
Right.
Probably.
And what does it think about China?
Ooh.
Because these microphones were made in China.
Were they actually?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we love
Nightcall endorses the Chinese Communist Party.
God, no, man. China scares me though in general.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's definitely.
Have you seen that video of the guy that gets locked in the chair? Like he got caught posting bad things about China on social media, and they strap him in with like metal bars, and then they just torture him.
No, I haven't. Is that like a live leak thing?
Yeah, I don't know where I saw it, but it was like, it was like a Facebook video.
Oh yeah, of course. Just Facebook to show you. I love it. Facebook's supposed to be the safe space. Just shows you some of the most messed up things I've ever seen.
Yeah, man. Like the videos I saw when I was 12, people in my year were sharing like videos of a kid getting, kids sharing videos of people like getting their heads sawed off with a chainsaw.
The ISIS videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think I know the exact video you're talking about as well.
Yeah, and it was like, you're just scrolling down your timeline. You're not expecting anything. And then all of a sudden, Curtis Wilson has shared a video of some woman getting her head chopped off. And it's like, Jesus, I will never recover from this. And it's, and that changed my life. I mean, the amount of...
The internet has changed my life. Oh, yeah.
The amount of kind of uncontrollable, violent stuff you come across,
like just completely unadulterated, uncensored content that we consumed at a ridiculously young age. It's bonkers. And for us to kind of derive all of our behavioral issues down to, and this is a huge callback, but down to the concept of alphas and betas after how much content we have been, in our developing years have consumed to think the way that we think. Yeah.
It's interesting that we kind of segued into Putin from alphas and betas, because he quite famously likes to present himself as an alpha.
Yeah. Obviously he did like the shirtless hunting, and hilariously then we got, Boris Johnson, who does that as a fucking zipline stunt. Yeah, which
was such a smart. Boris Johnson is incredibly smart.
Too smart for it's like I have to give up trying to denounce him in front of my mum, because he's done his job. My mum's but he's hilarious.
Yeah, the bumbling idiot. Like, what an idea! I don't think there was. He entered politics in the perfect time as well, because maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago, if you think about the 1990s and Blair and the kind of wearing a suit and
Gordon Brown,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like if Boris Johnson entered politics then, he wouldn't have been accepted. He came in when social media was at its greatest, and it's all about the little sentences you say. What are they called? Like not clickbait, but bites, sound bites. Yeah, like building Brexit.
Yeah,
I will. We'll get a no-deal Brexit over my dead body, he says. And those kind of wonderful sound bites that the fools in the working classes drink up like. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's the hilarious part of it. We're really gonna ride this line of not getting too political, but I don't want to get deep into being fucking what is it? If people start labeling this Nightcall as leftist and a leftist agenda, I'm just
No, I did just say bad things about the working classes, so I wouldn't
actually. Yeah. So you're actually the other way.
Yeah.
I
don't. I like the working class.
I am the working class.
Are you?
So I think so. I think
you're very middle class.
I don't know.
You're hosting a podcast in someone's annex. You're not working class.
I think the way class, and God, that is a whole separate thing. I don't know if I want to touch on fully now, but I think if the parameters of the classes in the UK were clearer, I think a lot of people would change their tune on a lot of things. Just a kind of an example is one of the things that people, so one of the top reasons people are scared to vote Labour, for example, because they think that they are wealthy enough to be taxed more. They think that they, matey boy, and I think I've even said this in the podcast already, so I'll say it again. Like, matey boy in his financed Mercedes who's working a job, doing marketing for a huge firm in Canary Wharf or something. He's wearing Hugo Boss suits. He goes out every Friday. He gets haircuts every 2 weeks. All this sort of smart, sharp hair. He has to have a sharp hairline the whole time. Yeah. This kind of guy, and he hears that, oh, the Conservative Party is telling me the Labour Party are trying to tax the rich. And I'm like, mate, just because you've just broke six figures does not mean you're the rich. The 1% is huge in this country compared to that. I think it's like, so this is when I start thinking about the concept of working class, middle class, upper class. Like where lower, where are the lines? Because you do fall into this thing where, I'm very conscious of, like, my family's super money conscious, and 10 years ago I'd been like, yeah, we're definitely middle class. But I think there's been more of a reality recently where there's even this line where there is a working middle class of a lower,
Yeah, I mean, I would have to dispute the idea that Labour aren't going to tax people only the 1% more.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying in a broader concept of people who their own elitism. It's like you say with the working class who eat up everything the Conservatives are saying, when the Conservatives are specifically disabling that class, in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, it is all down to Rupert Murdoch and his media corporations. I mean, that is the reason that we're currently in the mess that we're in.
Yeah. I always think that the kind of the glaring symbolic analogy of everything, I think, has always been Grenfell for me. Because Grenfell Tower is a tower. It's in London, full of working class people. People riding the poverty line effectively in some cases. And they would promise, we're going to jazz up your skyscraper to make it all nice for you, to put this big cladding on it. And the cladding was not done to spec. It was done by parties away from the residents themselves. The one resident couldn't specifically, there was no way they were going to contact the developer. There was just no way they could. They'd have to go for a party of a party of a party. And then obviously we had the incredible catastrophe that we did have that killed many and has left to this day still people unjustifiably homeless and unjustifiably without compensation. And all for what? In the grand scheme of things, the cladding was probably used more as a way to cover up an eyesore of a building, so that people in their richer, higher class skyscrapers didn't have to look at this old raggy building. They could look at this nice pretty cladding that's covering it up.
Yeah. And there are still buildings that have that cladding up.
Yeah, exactly
hasn't been
that.
removed yet.
And it's completely slept on. And I think that's a concept, a symbol in my eyes of how confused the class system has become, to the point where who is where, who is this really for, who are the almighty powerful, who are the people who are really getting...
Yeah, I surely though that the class society and the way that it's become the way it is a product itself of us. I mean, if you think, it wasn't created by someone else. It was created by humans themselves. From caveman times, the class system was probably apparent in some way. With a leader of a tribe and the captains of the tribe.
Yeah.
So it's almost human nature to have a kind of a system of superiority.
Well, I think capitalism in general is at the basis of very what is the exact word? Kind of primal concept in the sense that it is,
Winners and losers.
Winners, losers, the strongest prevail, the weaker fails. And it's in all walks of life, the whole, and this does tie back in with the, the beta and the alpha concept of like, you've got.
Yeah. I mean, alphas and betas, that's the class system of, the modern day.
Yeah. Spin around a bit.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really important point there. Is the alpha, beta, sigma idea is. We lost all momentum now.
You're good. No, yeah. So the sigma idea is still completely foreign to me. I'm still.
Yeah, I think it's an excuse for betas to call themselves something else that isn't alphas.
I think no. I'll touch on that after I've done with more what I'm thinking. Like it just translates into every walk of life. The whole concept of the power, the weaker, the stronger. It's in sport. That's why we like sports. The only reason people partake in sports is because they want, the winner, loser. Winners feel good. The winners are the alpha in this case, and then you've got it with relationships. You've got it with jobs. You've got it with how much money we make. Each separate interest you're into has the same thing. I have I guess an inflated sense of self because I have a more valuable and rare piece of clothing than say a friend of mine, and it's a very toxic way of thinking about it, but that's almost natural. Like I say, like it's a primal thing.
Do you think it's possible to kind of not have that
to negate it
in a society? To remove the superiority complex that comes through in everything.
Well, I think in the sense that it's very primal, I think there is a way for it to be rewritten. Yeah, for sure. Like I think especially as the human brain develops and as society develops, the problem is, and this is crazy, like this, again is, random white boy and it starts a podcast and starts spouting this bullshit, but like it's my logic for everything when it comes to kind of classism, racism, sexism, prejudice, and kind of like this, there's foreign concepts, countries, cultures, denouncing all of that, and kind of working towards this complete unity. I think the idea that capitalism in itself I feel like has stunted the growth of society. People, the concept of traditionalism, people negating any change. And like, don't get me wrong, this is when really primal and natural behaviors like fear is a huge part of it for a lot of people, is the reason that society hasn't progressed any further. But no, I personally like this idea that we could, just merge as a whole nation, as a whole being, as a whole species, and reach some higher level peace and love, reach some higher level where we can evolve to past weird primal stuff like that. I don't know. This could be a completely a naive thing to think, but every time someone denounces a new concept, every time someone is stuck in their ways, it's the first thing that comes to mind, where it's like, why are we going backwards, in that sense?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's humanity being humanity, and the self prevents the self in that huge case. But we were about to go down a route that I completely just shat on by spouting shit. What was it? Sigma's using so the Sigma male concept is created by beta males.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that was just something I'd said out loud. I don't know whether I believe in it or not, but yeah, I feel like there was some things before Sigma. So it was like alpha, beta, And then there was what goes after beta in the Greek alphabet? Gamma. I don't know.
God.
But like the
Gamma's there.
I remember there being 4chan posts about the one after beta, and then it kind of progressed to Sigma. I don't know where Sigma is in the alphabet. I think maybe it's not part of the alphabet. And it's just,
I don't know the Greek. They're all, it's like Lambda. That's the only other one I can think of.
Yeah. And it kind of progressed to a point where Sigma came from somewhere. And I mean, you can go online and see all these kind of diagrams of alpha and beta and where is Sigma. And it's like a pyramid. Alpha's at the top, Sigma's to the side. It's not even part of the pyramid. And then you've got beta, something below beta. I'd have to check. Yeah. So
the tier list.
Yeah. But no, it doesn't exist. I mean, there's no such thing as an alpha, and there's no such thing as a beta. There's just people. Yeah.
At least, so I've really just grazed the surface of what I don't, because this is the rabbit hole, and this is the crazy thing that social media has shown me more recently. So recently I uninstalled a bunch of social media things, and to fill the gap, normally I'd be scrolling through hours of reels or whatever, and the algorithm just was freaking out because I wasn't using it for however long. So when I came back, it had effectively like almost reset in a way. And I ended up seeing Jordan Peterson videos were coming up, and they'd stay, and I'd just would be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? So I'd watch him like a little bit, just be like, what on earth is this guy spouting?
Yeah.
If you look at the data, and it's like the stuff of him like fucking like, it's like, oh, Jordan Peterson cries, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's like,
owns trans people. It's
like
God.
He completely strong arms some poor woman who's trying to give a valid point, but he just raises his voice and strong arms her and makes her feel uncomfortable, and it's like, oh, he's won the argument, guys. And it's like, oh, his philosophy is gospel, but yeah, like I've been reading through this stuff, and it's also kind of like these, the Sigma Grindset concept of these people who are just unapologetically overly disciplined in themselves, to the point that they can't have a shred of emotional reaction to anything they do.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's go on to Sigma Grindset after, because I want to touch on Jordan Peterson a little bit.
Okay.
So I watched. I think anyone that goes onto YouTube at some point will be given a Jordan Peterson video, or like one of those kind of videos.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
What's the one who's like, he's almost laughably? There's a new guy who's been popping up. Is
he the bald MMA fighter, Andrew Tate?
Yeah,
possibly, yeah.
And he's literally so far gone. Like, it must be a character.
Yeah,
I refuse to.
It's like, it's crazy to the point where it's got to be irony.
Yeah, well, he's the ones like, if my friend is dying next to me, I'm telling him to grow.
Do you know CPR?
Up.
Yeah. Are you gonna help? No.
Get over it.
Yeah.
Have a coffee.
Yeah.
And move on.
Yeah. And I mean, when you're on YouTube, you will get those kind of videos. And I started watching Jordan Peterson videos, and I was like, oh my God, this is the first psychologist who looks into the psyche of the male teenager and has really worked things out. And I was like I was becoming one of those people.
So you fell for the algorithm a little bit.
I did, yeah. And I actually remember speaking to my dad about it, and he had also come across the videos, and he had just said, Jordan Peterson is full of shit, is what he said. And just explained to me, like he said, what did Jordan Peterson say? And I'd explain, that he was talking about how men are suffering more than women because I don't know, they're programmed to be leaders or something insane.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I admit I was very impressionable. It was like when I was 17 or 18, maybe slightly later. But yeah, and he kind of stopped me from going that way. But as I had watched
your dad.
Yeah. As I had watched a lot of Jordan Peterson videos, I started getting like feminist-owned compilation videos, and things that go slightly further down this kind of wormhole of alt-right Trump, those kind of related videos, and I hated them. Like I realized how having this kind of echo chamber of alt-right views is such a terrible thing, and I think I woke up in time for it not to kind of destroy my personality.
Yeah,
but I think there's a lot of people that I know that have kind of fallen for those videos, because Jordan Peterson does offer the lost male teenager. Yeah, but he offers the lost male teenager an excuse for being lost, and says,
that's I mean, that entire, like, quote that is literally
and the whole have you seen his rules for life?
No.
He's done a few books where, like, number one is make your bed. Yeah. Number one is make your bed. Number two is don't have a go at skateboarders that are skating, which I'm sure you agree with, but it's like weird. Number three is like treat everyone like they've got something that you don't know about. Like you'll learn something from them. Yeah. And I think the rules are okay, but he seems to be. The
problem is there will be valid takeaways that he has.
Yeah, and I mean he's a proper lecturer, psychological lecturer. He probably knows some things.
Yeah,
but he is teaching on the edge of misogyny and transphobia
and it gets clicks. That's the thing as well. Like, I almost feel like he leans into it because he's getting like, well, it's this reason that I hang around. I'm like, okay, his videos just come onto my feed, because this is on like the shorts where the video just like you are scrolling through videos and they're being shown to you. You don't click on them; they're just there. So like, I don't think I've ever really actively clicked on a Jordan Peterson. Like I had a Joe Rogan stage for sure.
Oh really?
Yeah, I watched a lot of Joe Rogan, but the thing is, I watched I watched one Alex Jones one because I just thought it was hilarious, but I never watched any of his Jordan Peterson ones. I was watching stuff like, because he does a lot of stuff with like rock climbers. Alex Honnold was on it. A lot of I loved hearing stories of just guys who would just do these crazy things. This Welsh guy he interviewed who just walked from one side of Mongolia to the other, and at one point he was so dehydrated he was like pissing like fucking like brown and shit like that. Like he was just telling all these crazy stories about how like he was. So like a guy was so malnourished in the wild that a grizzly bear just didn't even bother ripping him apart, and he survived because he was close to death on that. Like that was why I watched a lot of Joe Rogan, but I don't know if like just his behavior is and the way he talks and stuff brushed off on me, but at no point did I ever fall for the Sigma stuff or like the Jordan B. Petersons and the what's his face? What's the short guy?
Gary V.
No, I mean him as well. Fucking Gary V. Ben Shapiro. I was talking about. I find him fascinating because it's like there's an incredible, especially when they talk. There's this wild, like I just see like a wild sense of naivety in them all the time, and like especially more so recently where I've had a lot of free time to like I'm listening to a lot of like audio books around philosophy. They are showing up, I see like constantly in my recommendeds, like it'll be like, oh yeah, like deconstructing nihilism or like the sense of self and the reasons you are the way you are by blah blah blah, and then underneath it will be like Jordan B. Peterson, like, or he's like his daughter now does the same thing. She's now doing the same thing, and like she'll come up and be like, why my dad is the way he is, and like why he has Soviet paintings in his house, and I'm like, oh, why is this coming up for me? But it's right there, and it's so interesting to me that like, of course, like obviously people were into this, and like I know I've like you do as well. I had friends who like fell into that trap. Hilariously, like 9 out of 10 of these friends who fall into the trap quickly fall out of it just as quick, and then they're like, they instantly denounce. They're like, even bring up Jordan B. Peterson or Ben Shapiro or another one like those charisma channels like the guys who get dates all the time and they like, this is how you talk to women, those sort of videos.
Yeah.
And like another guy's like how to be the center of attention at a party and all this shit.
Right.
And it's like at one point, some poor guy with lacking social skills probably watched that video and then ended up falling down a rabbit hole where now, you know, they think women are, you know, are second class humans, and then they're like they're misunderstood, and now they have to wake up at 6 a.m. and
4 a.m. Yeah, and
4
edge
a.m.
for 2 hours.
Yeah, and eat eggs with the shell
Yeah.
and shit like that. And I'm just like, Christ, it's borderline. It's like a coping mechanism in the way a religion is. You know, they
Oh yeah, the regimented, like the army.
yeah, like they're fully just absorbed, and they're like, this is now my lifestyle. And no wonder some people struggle to break that cycle. You know,
Yeah.
I find it just so. It's like weird because I find it hilarious, but it's like inevitable at the same time. I'm always just like, well, yeah, of course this exists. Of course, people like have these outlooks, and I like specifically one of the ones I do despise is these unapologetically just beating on the self. You know, this complete discipline of like, you're going to wake up one morning and you're going to run for 10 miles and you're going to throw up on yourself, and then you're going to go home and then you're going to read a book until the rest of the day, and then you're going to go to bed at 9 p.m. Wake up and do it all again. If your body hurts, get over it.
I think that links perfectly with the Sigma Grindset idea, and you know, waking up at 4 a.m. having, you know, always being on the grind. You do your 9 to 5 and then you stop doing your 9 to 5 and then you start doing cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
You know? But it's like, what part of cryptocurrency are you doing?
I think this is...
Do you study the graphs?
I think it's because it's something new.
Yeah, like recently I bought Bitcoin, right? I'm not, you know, when I'm done with my 9 to 5, I don't sit and go on my Sigma Grindset with crypto. I don't know what that means. I just sometimes I'll go on PayPal and look, and it will say this is worth this much, and I think okay.
Well, I think it's because I think the reason crypto and obviously NFTs at some point, which I really don't want to touch on, but whatever, is that
we're ticking off every toxic.
We got it all out of system this episode, and we can't talk about it ever again. But the reason these exist and they have been adopted by the audience they have is because they're new and manipulable in a way that it's like, because these people, you know, Gary V, he just wants to be on the next big thing. He just wants to be he wants to be able to turn around, consume something, turn around to the next person and be like, I've just figured this out. This is what we have to do to be successful and ahead of the game. And I think that's why stuff like crypto specifically, like I believe in crypto. Like I think as a concept, as a decentralized currency, I think that's great. But as like this money, you know, with these altcoins and these money grabs and these rug pulls, you know, bullish markets and shit like this, like it's fucking, it's terrifying because there is no unfortunately, the appeal of it being unregulated is also its downfall, because there's no one to turn around and be like, no, this is the floor price. It stays here. It can't, like, you know. The problem with an unmanipulable market is actually in how, in hindsight, it is really manipulable because it's unmanipulable, you know, which is why there were tether coins and that's when you know you're going backwards. Why are you making a cryptocurrency that tethers to a real world, like a government backed currency, you know? Like that's when you'll know you're getting into crypto for the wrong reason. And like I bought into crypto, I think end of 2020, beginning of 2021. I think end of 2020. And I haven't touched it since. I know I made some good highs at some point, but I think obviously the market is smashed down again. I don't care enough to sell. Like I'm good.
Well, selling now would be
Yeah, exactly. But this is the people who have been, a lot of these Gary V followers. They're the people who are then fucking shit themselves because some blithering like hyper manipulator on the internet has been like, buy this, buy like what was I hearing? He was talking about buying wine the other day because wine is now a commodity.
What, like gold?
Yeah. So Gary V's been like, buy wine. He's like, buy aging wine, and then it's the same with like.
To be fair, that is an investment.
Yeah,
it's like jewelry, isn't it?
They all are, and I think it's the same. But it's like you can't just blindly follow a man's word. Yeah.
I mean, if Gary V had the secrets to wealth, he wouldn't be sharing the secret.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
and he wouldn't be charging people. To share.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the chumps, Gary V is a bit of a chump, but the real chumps are the people that are paying for those kind of. Those degree style classes that these kind of economic influencers do. Like Gary V will have a...
Yeah. You can't put that on your curriculum virtue.
No. What do you call those? Like Trump did it as well. Do you remember? He did like his own...
Masterclasses or whatever.
Yeah. Those are the real fools, the people spending...
Well, they're schemes, aren't they? They're not classes.
No, exactly. Schemes is the right word.
Everyone's got like... I was watching a video of a guy... Oh, what's his name? There's a guy on YouTube who he just takes the piss out of people, and he signed up for like Tom Brady's gym workout, and it's like everyone has their regurgitated fucking like Gary V's 12 steps to success or whatever. And this, it's just bonk. And I think like you said, it takes advantage of people who are struggling to define things on them by themselves.
Yep.
Like the first thing I think about when someone puts a catalog in front of me, or the welcome page of one of these websites of like, sign up for this website and you can find out how to be successful. I'm like, well, define like what are you getting out of people for them to change their way of thinking to think that some shit on the internet is going to give them success in quotation marks? And like you can think that in a deeper way where it's like, well, define success as well. Like a lot of these people are micromanaged and trained into thinking they need to look good, have flourishing, like constant relationships with overly attractive people and like attract everyone and be charismatic and earn loads of money. I'm like, fucking hell, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah, like, and the idea of the Sigma Grindset is basically to sacrifice your youth in its entirety to make as much money as possible. You do your 9 to 5, then you get on your grind for the rest of the day, and then you sell on Amazon and all this stuff. And you don't have any time for any fun at all.
Well, it's not even any time for any fun. It's like the any time to like be a human being.
Yeah.
And to give yourself some, like, I think it subscribes hilariously even further into capitalism as a concept, where it's like you have to grind like a corporate pig and do what the man tells you. And just because
it's ultra capitalism, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the next stage. Like it's like quit your job at your big corporation to now follow exactly what I say, which is more or less what your corporation's been telling you to do, but now I'm telling you to do it and giving you a sense of independence whilst you do it. And it's like, I'm doing this, I'm breaking my balls the same way, probably not even with none of the security that a corporation would still be able to provide you. And you're breaking your balls in the exact same way. And you get this crazy sense of entitlement out of it and self-worth, but in the complete wrong way.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I don't know if I've never subscribed to Sigma in that sense, like the grind set in that sense, where like when I first started out the gym, and I think I have a feeling the gym is where ideas like this birth. Whoever first was like, oh yeah, this the grind set of grinding every day, probably thought of it whilst they were at the gym, because that's when all the testosterone's pumping and you're floating. Because when I'm at the gym, like I kind of thought, oh shit, yeah, I need to do this, discipline myself, push myself. And I think don't get me wrong, and this is what I'm struggling with anyway, is finding this line between disciplining the self but enabling yourself to be a human being as well, and living, not taking small defeats as some huge. It's not black and white, you know.
Yeah.
In that way.
I've been going through something similar in that I've learned recently that you kind of got to give yourself a bit of a break if you do something. Like if you don't go to the gym or go for a run in one day, I used to think it was like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And like I was, I'm never going to get back on what I was doing. But sometimes you just got to give yourself a break. And it's so obvious. It's painstakingly obvious, but at the same time, it's not followed. By people.
No, it's and that's what, I feel like the Sigma Grindset
it completely
takes advantage of.
Yeah, it completely removes the idea of just
having a break.
And allowing yourself to make mistakes and to, just be a human. Exactly.
Yeah. And like because I was, when I was in the height of where I felt like I was falling for the Sigma Grindset meme maybe a little bit, was when I was working full time in retail. I was doing 40, 50 hour weeks. I'd do a 10-hour shift at work, get home at 8 o'clock, switch over into my gym clothes and then go to the gym for an hour and a half. And I would just do that every day, pretty much, like most days of the week. And then when I had the free time, I was trying to monetize hobbies. That's another thing that kind of falls into that thing of like society is teaching you to monetize your hobby these days because you need that extra money. And I'm like, no, just do something because you fucking enjoy it. Do something because it gives you a sense of community, or the social aspect, And I think hilariously, we are pushing ourselves away from the fundamentals of what it's like to be human. It's like you're sitting here defining success and happiness and stuff, but we're removing the self in a lot of these. Like we're communal animals, we need to be social. We need to have downtime to spend with others. We need to love and be loved. But if you're too busy on your Sigma Grindset, working 70-hour weeks, not talking to anyone, and when you do talk to anyone, it's very you fall into a transactional relationship where you're only talking to people because you want something from them. When you're only seeing.
But don't we all talk to people just for something?
Well,
I mean, I only talk to you, or I only talk to my friends to gain something from it. It might be a memory. It might be,
Well, there you go. I think
But I'm doing it for a selfish reason. In the end, I'm doing it because I want to have fun. I want to enjoy my life.
Yeah, but that's the correct selfish reason, if you know what I mean. As opposed,
kind of.
I'm thinking more in terms of like people keeping friends close because they can offer them certain things.
Yeah, I mean, I've been going through a period of time now where I see most social events as work. Not work as in like the 9-to-5 job, but more, I've got to do something tonight rather than relax, Yeah. And that's not a particularly good mindset to have.
Yeah, well, I think similarly, I mean, I don't know if mine's for different reasons, but I find myself social activities feeling like a chore.
Yeah. That's exactly the same.
But I know mine's more, and I think maybe you as well, because I think we have touched on this before. But like it's the social energy and the anxious energy that's being spent that I struggle with, where I can't fully relax, so it doesn't feel like downtime because I can't fully relax.
You've got to, you basically got to play a kind of a sensationalized version of yourself that makes everything interesting with your friends. You can't switch off, and you can't think, I'm not going to say anything now. For me, at least, I've got to basically play a kind of caricature of myself that is, I'm basically performing to my friends is how I feel.
Yeah.
And you aren't able to switch off because you've always got to be ready and on guard for anything that happens socially.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think that's like very similar, at least for me, where I find myself not putting on an act as such, but definitely like, you pick and choose a personality and you go from there. And I think, yeah, like the space you create when you're in a social situation and you see it like that, like you see it as more of a chore, you see it as more of a show, completely takes away from almost what it is like to be a social person and be a social being. It's like, it's really quite backwards. Because I find myself, I don't know about you, but I find myself drawn to solitude and being alone, but I'm 100% sure that in the long run it's going to be more debilitating to myself and my character and who I am if I spend all my time in solitude.
Oh, in solitude, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think we've touched on this before, but I have in the past and currently, I seem to be really happy on my own when I'm aware of being invited to certain social events by my friends. But as soon as I'm no longer invited to those events and I'm on my own, I feel much more alone and kind of unhappy with being alone. Like, if I decline an invitation, I still feel like I'm liked by people. And so I can kind of spend that alone time enjoyably, probably more enjoyably than going to a social event. But if I'm not being invited, then I hate being on my own. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for you,
I guess it's being wanted.
Yeah, being desired is more affectionate for you than actually the social connection of attending such an event. Yeah, I get that. I can't remember. Like, I think, because I find it when you first brought this up that it's like you're almost experiencing the opposite of FOMO. You know, you don't. Yeah. You've got you've got the opposite of the fear of missing out. If anything, you've got the appreciation. AOMO, you got the appreciation of missing out.
Well, kind of. I think it's more. It's not that when I'm alone and I'm not getting the invite. It's not because the event's not happening, but they've now decided that I'm no longer wanted, and then the missing out part is definitely
kicks
kind
in.
of yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's being in control of my own missing out that I like. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean. And being in control as a concept is always something that's more desired than being out of control. So it makes sense that in a situation where 9 out of 10 times for other people, if that scenario came up, people would feel like they're missing out. But in your case, you're like, well, because you're in control of missing out, it's a more favorable thing for you.
Yeah.
And I think I'm in a similar sense. I think at the moment I feel like I'm always on borrowed time when I'm in a social situation. So if people expect me, when someone says that they're doing something at 7 and it's going to last pretty much all night and they're starting at 7, I'm definitely not going to be there at 7. You know, I'm not punctual in that sense because I want to make sure that my time is like effective, not for them, but for myself, where I'd feel like if I stayed there and longed myself out, it gives me more time to overthink a situation or feel out of place or something like that. So a lot of the time I'm spending with people, I'm gonna be like, oh, so if someone says, yeah, people are popping over at like 7, 8-ish, I'll be like, cool. I'll probably show my face at like 9:30. It's not because I've not got anything going on before, you know, I'm just going to be sitting at home, like right up until 9:30. But
I think that's the right, I mean, obviously maybe the reasons behind that mindset isn't necessarily a good thing, but I think turning up to social events, if I'm critiquing social events, which is what I'm doing now, turning up to social events later on gives you so much more attention and control if you need control of a social situation, but also you're not there for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And especially, I mean, and that's not because you get, at least in my case, it's not because I get fed up of people or fed up of being social. I think
Just
it's
in your
more
case.
just the stamina. I just,
Yeah.
I fatigue quick. I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to be able to keep up this act if I, keep up my social etiquette.
Yeah. I can't remember the term. It's like you're really switched on. When I used to go to social events or even go out for a day.
Hyper aware.
Yeah. When I went on holiday recently, and when I go on like days out to cities and stuff, when I get home, like I'm so mentally tired because I'm like hyper aware of everything, around me, the people around me and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's like anytime I leave the house, I'm exactly like that. I'm hyper aware of everything that's going on. And I get so tired so quickly of that I feel like I need to leave places.
Yeah. Yeah, no. A good example I had recently, God, probably like 3 years ago? So when Jonah visited, and obviously you had him quite a few nights here, but for the last night he stayed with me. And especially I sympathized with you afterwards, where it's like, completely no offense to Jonah. He's a great person to spend time with, but just my social stamina of like, we spent all day in London, and then we went home, we grabbed dinner together, and then we go all the way back to my house. And, he basically moves in and makes himself at home. And it's like, and he stays the night, and it's like, fucking hell, like he is here the whole time. I have to keep up that act.
It's like a marathon of being sociable. Yeah.
And I do take it to an extreme in a lot of cases where even though I spend time with people who I'm intimate with, in relationships where it's like people don't stay the night often with me, like rarely. I can't think of the last time someone stayed. I shared the bed with someone because I just was like, I can't deal with the social. If I wake up and you're there in the morning, I'm like, fucking hell, like it's another day going. And I mean, there's loads of other reasons which I'm not going to get into because they're personal, but that is definitely like something that translates across the board with a lot of things, which is interesting because like, especially because I still live with my parents, I still live with my sister, it doesn't apply to them, I'll go home to my parents and my sister and my social thing will drop and I can be normal. But there's this pressure almost. It's definitely, I could describe it as a pressure where when it's someone else, I have like an obligation.
Absolutely. I'm exactly the same, 100% the same. Maybe for different reasons, but I feel exactly the same. I went to Prague recently with some friends, and although
that was 5 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6 days, I think. And although I think they were fine, I became really, really irritable, and
understandably,
I could never switch off, and I could never just be myself. That. Yeah.
And
yeah, maybe.
Did they know that? Did they?
Oh yeah, I think they've started to realise.
These are friends who you've known for like long time, so
yeah. But I got like really irritable, and by the end I was like, right, the last day I'm going on my own for the whole day, and I'll meet you somewhere because I can't do it anymore.
And they'd respect that though.
Oh yeah, they did. I mean, it was my first ever experience away from home, not on a school trip with my friends.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you'd been... Oh no, you went with your brother too.
Yeah, which like you say, when you live, with your family, you can kind of switch off.
Yeah.
I think part of it is worrying that they aren't going to have a good time because you aren't, or one isn't making them have a good time.
Definitely.
I mean, that is it for me. If I've got a friend round, I've got to be constantly thinking about whether they're comfortable, whether they're happy, whether they're enjoying themselves, whether there's anything I can do to help them enjoy themselves, whether I'm in a particularly good mood, how I'm feeling, etc., etc. And you've got to, every thought you have to consider in the context of the social situation, the implications of your decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you're on your own, it's so easy because you can do whatever you like.
Yeah, cock out.
Yeah, exactly.
Live that life.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So I've actually feel like I've I've seen both sides of this now, where especially like I think around 2019, 2020, I think I was almost like full extrovert mode, and I could just handle that. And this is if we're counting, and this is another thing that falls into the area of beta and alpha, is I think the concepts of introvert and extrovert, I think, are complete made up constructs as well. But when I was feeling particularly, social, extroverted, outspoken, and just loving social activity was in 2019, 2020, and I think it was the people who I spent a lot of time with. So like these friends who I met them through car culture and stuff like that, but then I kind of got introduced into their group as a friend, and I was hilariously there. These are people who have been friends since like secondary school, probably even earlier than that in some cases. Like two of them, they've just gotten engaged, and they're literally like high school sweethearts, and it's really cute. But this group has then kind of accepted me, and especially because lockdown happened, and we could only, after a while, they did like the rule of six thing. We started doing little garden parties and stuff. And so I was attending these garden parties, and I just felt invigorated. I've never been in a group where, well, I say that's a lie, but like I think it'd been a while at least since I've been in a group that kind of really felt like they were very welcoming and very. I just felt like I was thriving in this social situation, and it was at that point when I realized all of a sudden like I could. Because I remember like they were doing these like campouts, and I was like, yeah, but I'm only going to stay till like 11 because that's when I know my social meter will run out, and then I'll go. And then eventually I was like, oh yeah, I'm staying all night. I'm going to kip in the car. We're going to carry on the next day. We're going to go into town. And I was spending like 3 or 4 days with these people at times. And it got to the point when I even went on a hiking trip with a group of them. And don't get me wrong, I was anxious of the idea. I was like, oh God, like these are new people in my life who don't know who I was prior, which kind of, when it comes to kind of developing personalities and stuff like that, I was like, am I a new person around these people? But yeah, it ended up being this really fascinating experience because all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, is this what it's like to feel socially stimulated and not fatigued? Like I was having no problem. They'd be like, oh yeah, we're going to go out 3 nights on the trial. I'm like, fuck yeah, sign me up. I'm down for that. And it was completely new to me, but hilariously now I'm back at square one where I'm like, God, 2 hours with someone is enough,
Yeah. When you were talking about that, it kind of sprung to me the idea that of, the freedom of your personality is no longer entrenched with the history of school. And I think that's why so many people love their university friend group so much more than the friends they meet at school. And the uni group is, I mean, not for me personally, but for most people, it's like the friends you will be friends with for the rest of your life. And that's because you kind of have a little bit of control over how you're portrayed compared to school. Yeah. I mean, school, you still do have some control, but growing up from, year 1 or reception up until year 13 with someone.
We were effectively the same group of people the whole time.
You've got no control over how you're perceived. You go to university and all of a sudden you're in control of what you do, who, what societies you go to, who you speak to, what you wear, all this stuff that maybe you weren't so in control of in a uniformed school,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I can understand why that kind of friend group might possibly be really nice for you because you have that control.
Yeah. And it is, and we're starting to really notice this the pattern of when you are in control, there is the sensibilities of everything is actually not as prevalent as you think, where you don't actually fatigue as much socially. But yeah, I mean, if we want to touch on school quickly, it is God, the school life for me, and maybe similarly for you, I think it was just a hive mind of behavioral toxicity and like in reflection, just hilarious that just the they just stick all of these hormonal like completely like unrestricted people in an environment together for their entire developing life. And what happens from that is, all of these crazy ideas come out and these constructs come out where, like, I mean, as much as I don't subscribe to the beta and the alpha concept, but I think by definition in school I was as beta as it probably could get.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Just out of the pure misunderstanding. Oh yeah, thanks.
No, I was very beta in school.
I mean, beta is just another way of saying I was bullied. And I was, you were either in school, you were either the bully or the bullied in a lot of cases.
I think in most cases, or at least in my case, you're both the bullied and the bullier.
Oh yeah. You
bully.
You regurgitate it on. For sure.
Because it's a dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah, very much.
You've got to join in with the horribleness, or it might be you next.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was my mindset in school. And I was a very toxic person in school.
Still are now, to be fair.
Well, just diluted.
Yeah. No, I think I was I don't know if I was... maybe in some cases toxic, but definitely confused. Definitely, insecure was a huge, like, I mean, God, like I'm not gonna deep the bullying in that sense, but I still talk about certain scenarios that happened in my childhood with my therapist, for example. And this is falling into the first, as you're growing up, how that defines the way you are now. And I mean, I found myself, talking to my therapist at one point, and I'm like, I'm weirdly grateful for effectively being treated like shit during school, because I'd be scared that I wouldn't be the way I am now if it wasn't for that behavioral experience. But yeah, like it really follows like a really primal thing with everyone, with the way we are and the way we fit in, and like classes and the pecking order and stuff like that. I just find it really hilarious in because I wonder now, like, stick this brain into 14, 15-year-old me, and what happened between then and now for me to be the way I am.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of things I used to worry about that now I think back on and just think, I can't believe I used to worry about that.
Yeah.
Like getting changed in PE changing rooms. I used to be really worried about that. And I used to be worried that I wouldn't be able to find a place to get changed. And just those minor things. Whereas now, if I was myself now in year 7, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Stuff like going to the toilet in school, something so simple, but so terrifying at the same time. It's like running the gauntlet every time you wanted to go to the toilet. That someone might, either if you're in a urinal, someone might push you while you're there and shout tornado or hurricane or something. Or you go in a cubicle and you risk someone kicking the door down and taking pictures of you.
Yeah.
So I used to not go to the toilet.
I thought that someone would always put a camera over the top.
So I used to hold everything in.
Oh yeah, mate.
All day.
I was backed up like an MF.
Yeah. So I'd be really nervous before school that I'd need the toilet. And it was like, I saw a TikTok recently of a person who had left prison after about 30 years. And he was talking about the kind of instincts that he had learned in prison. And how they were affecting him in daily life at the moment. And he was talking about how he went on a first date with this lady and he was so used to eating really, really, really quickly so that no one else would steal his food, that on this date he just ate really, really, really fast and was done in like 30 seconds. And he didn't realize, that he'd had this instinct and he'd taken this away, and the lady had to ask him what he was doing, and he kind of realized. And there definitely was some kind of similarities to me when leaving school in that you had to worry about all sorts of things, what kind of food you were getting in the lunch hall, you know, and then all of a sudden you have complete independence, and it's so beautiful. And I've learned to appreciate so much through the horrors of school.
Yeah.
Like being able to wear what I want, get up when I want, you know,
well,
etc.
I mean, it's there's loads of things that it's crazy how the guy from prison translates into a lot of it. It's hilarious in a way, but it's like it made me think things that I took away from school, like when I left school, I remember still having the I can't talk to the popular kids thing. You know, I kind of felt completely naive to what anyone to the fact that like now we're out of school, we're equal human beings. You know, I kind of and the thing how fucked up was it that I and probably many others thought of themselves as a lesser person. And I still do now, you know. A lot of my insecurities stem from shit in school, 100%. Like, I don't even know if the reason I'm going to the gym was because, you know, my entire school life was being told I was a twig, I was skinny, I was weak, you know, because skinny people don't get the same, you know, if I've called, I mean, God, this is definitely not me this is not a Me Too thing, but like, there was this weird acceptance where like, if I turned around and told someone that they're fat, or if that they're, I think, I mean, fat's probably the best example of this, because it's become such a scary thing to call someone now without being, you know, visually. I'm not getting into the crazy, you know, racism, sexism, none of the big, like, I'm just talking when someone's fat and you're like, yeah, you're fat. And then everyone's like, you can't fucking say that. You can't do that. You can't. And then, but then there was, you know, me, who every day was being told I was skinny, I was malnourished. Oh, are you anemic? Are you anorexic? Are you bulimic? I got it all, you know. To the point that I was going to the doctors thinking that maybe I am. No, I wasn't. I just was, you know, this is just what society was telling me, what people around me were telling me. And and that like translated into maybe me going to the gym and putting in work, but I'm at least somewhat thankful I did it out of school, where I was kind of like, I have a sense of self that I'm doing it for. But
as long as you are doing it for yourself, you know, and you're not doing it to kind of prove people wrong.
At this point, I see it more, it's a mental health thing now. I think I'm less caring about being wham. Like, I'm still insecure about parts of myself, but like at no point am I turning around and be like, I want to be the next Chris Bumstead, or like the next like power lifter, something like that. Like I haven't got that in my brain. I want to feel good. And if I go to the gym, I feel good. And that's what I like about it. But yeah, at the beginning, it was kind of like, I kind of turned around, like I all of a sudden felt indestructible. And I'm like, yep. Like now, even if that popular girl from school messaged me now, I'll tell her to fuck off, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of like, you get that huge sense of confidence, but then it's like, I've enabled the constructs that put me in the position that I'm in, you know. I felt it really refreshing making friends with people. Like, I'm good friends with people now who I despised in school, or could have despised me, you know. And I think there might even still be people who would listen to this podcast who was like, oh yeah, that's that weird kid from our school.
I'm completely the opposite. I will hold grudges until I die.
I mean, there's definitely some grudges I hold. Oh yeah, for sure.
My memory of slights that I took in school is incredible.
Oh yeah, I still hear about the Minecraft house.
Yeah,
to this
exactly.
day.
Yeah, I can think of individual moments where people have said something to me, even slightly. I remember someone called me a quitter in year 6. I remember that, you know.
Yeah.
And I will remember that until the day I die, and I will seize any opportunity I can find to one up any of those people when I can, and that's what dedicates me in my life.
Well, I have a similar, like I have literally the ultimate kind of green text anon story of like, it was German, and it was like pair up with people in class, and the teacher was moving people around to pair up with new people, and this girl sat next to me and she just looked disgusted. Like she just looks like
That's happened to me.
She looked like she'd like sat next to like a rotting corpse.
Yeah.
Like I was just like sat there, and then
The overwhelming sadness.
and she
you feel
and then when she wasn't coping with the group act, like when she wasn't partaking in this partner activity, the teacher called her out on it, and she literally just in front of the class quite happily was just like, I don't want to be next to this guy, he's fucking weird, and like me, I haven't said fuck all this whole time, and to this day I think I'm friends with the majority of what was her friendship group now, you know, quite close friends in fact with a few of them, but I'm not going to talk to her ever again, because that shit, like that fucked me up for the rest of, like that's something that I've been talking about in therapy, and it didn't stem a lot of things. It just reaffirmed a lot of stuff inside me that was like, that wasn't the right time to say. Well, there's never a right time, but that really wasn't.
I mean, do you feel like there are people, when you describe that story, there are people in my year that spring to mind in the same scenarios. Do you think those people can change?
Yeah. And I think, because I've met those people, I think like.
And you think they've genuinely changed, or they're trying to present a changed person to you because they're aware of the fact that we're no longer in school and you've kind of got to change? Is it a purpose?
Not that it's got to change, but I had a really interesting example to this day. I think still quite interesting because it's still developing. So I had a friend who was from the next town over. His mum was a nurse. My mum was a nurse. We used to hang out a lot. We went on a couple of holidays together because our mums were at university together. And he was just from the town over, and he was separate to my school life. You know, I'd never even thought, like, he just thought, oh, this is Matt. He's a normal person, and we'd hang out. But he was like the part of the popular group, I guess you'd say, from his school. He had no idea that I'm like in the social hierarchy. You know, people were shouting names and shit at me, and you know, I was like, if someone said something to me one day, I'd be too scared to go into school and confront them the next day, you know, that sort of thing. And he didn't know that, so he then like, he's like, oh, one of my friends is moving to your town and he's moving to your school, and I was like, fuck,
worlds are colliding.
Yeah, I was like, this is not. And then this exact person gets assigned to me in physics, and just like that, he is instantly like, he's the social acolyte and I am beneath him. And it was like this crazy weird thing where it was like, why aren't we equals? I was like trying to be, but because I was, you know, I subscribed to the hierarchy myself. I was just timid and like terrified, you know. And then like a good example is like, what, fucking like 2020, and this is another thing. We'll bring it all out as well. But like, before I carry on, this is the same person I remember is maybe a contributor to why I went to the gym as well, because nothing out of it, like he was a little bit like, he kind of went along with a lot of the stuff that I had to go through, but like, God, as if I was traumatized. I mean, maybe I was, but in sixth form, I remember he came in from like some class or something, and he, you know, everyone's confined to the changing rooms to do your change room stuff, and he just is like, yeah, I'm going to come into the study room and I'm going to get changed in the study room. And I remember just watching like a group of girls just ogly eyeing him, like just like what, like, and then just this girl like turns to the other one and just like, wow. And I'm just like, wait, what? So this is the reaction you could have. I was like, fucking hell, I need to go to the gym.
Really?
Not in a literal sense, but like, then, because obviously I didn't go to the gym the next day. It still took me like 5 years to actually go to the gym after that. But I still was like, oh shit. So if you do shit like this is literally the reaction you can get. And I was just like blown away by it. But yeah, like eventually I was just going for taking advantage of my hour in lockdown, like a couple of years ago, like where we were allowed to leave the house for some exercise. And I was cycling through the mills near us, and I saw the exact same guy just lighting up a zoot in like the bird watching tower. and just walked over him, and I literally just felt like a human being, spoke to him, and just kind of spoke about life and stuff. And it's all just instantly like we're on a level playing field. And I think with a lot of people, they realize that when they leave school, the same people who were at the bottom now realize there's a level playing field and go up. And it's like, you know, we're all just humans. But the same people who were like treated like social gold dust are now like, oh shit, everyone's actually the same now. So I'm gonna, you know, stay in, like, get in my lane kind of thing. So yeah, I think there is an aspect of forgivability with a lot of people's actions. I think some people will just live a sheltered life to the point that you just will never align with them. But I think there is room to be close and connect with everyone, even if there was a time when you were considered socially unreachable from each other. Yeah, maybe. Do you still, I'm not much of a change, but do you still get dreams about school?
No, not anymore. There was definitely a 2 or 3 year period when I had dreams that were school related or university related, but I think enough time has passed now. I don't recall having a dream recently, to be fair. I think maybe I remember my parents talking about dreams they've had which are school related, so it must, for most people, it must stay with you for a long time. And maybe I will, but you know, I definitely haven't had a school related dream in maybe a year or two. But yeah.
Yeah, no, since like the prospect of going back to uni, they've come back quite heavily. And I get vivid dreams anyway because of the medication I used to be on. And for some reason, even though I don't take the medication anymore, I still get those same dreams. And they last quite a while. But yeah, I've had a few recently which have been pretty wild. Like just really like to the point where I think I woke up still in the mindset of like, oh shit, I've got to get ready for school. Like it's been that like intrusive in my brain. Yeah, vivid. Yeah. And school's out though, thank fuck.
Yeah.
It's weird to think it's been a really long time as well. Like what, 8 years for me?
Yeah.
Since I've been in school, 8 years.
I think it's been 5 years for me. 6 years.
Is that including uni?
Oh, well, I was only at uni for like 3 months.
Oh, yeah. No, you did.
Well, I did two stints at 2 different universities.
Yeah,
collectively about 6, 7 months, 8 months maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway.
Any hizzle.
Let's call it a day. Because I'm really hungry.
I'm so hungry as well.
Fuck you. Fuck the fans.
Fuck the fans.